We've completed the first two premises. Now it's time to look at the third premise: the cause for the beginning event was personal. So we're following our tree diagram of options. We found out the universe had a beginning. The beginning event was caused. And now the last premise is the cause for the beginning event was personal. There are four factors that we're going to use to support that the first cause was personal. 3.1 is the cause is not scientific, so it's personal. 3.2 is the beginning event's cause is a mind. 3.3 is the first cause willed to initiate the creation event. And 3.4 is the design of nature to support advanced life. And that fourth one is really playing off of the teleological or design argument for the existence of God. So, in 3.1, the cause is not scientific, so it's personal. This is based on the principle of sufficient reason. Richard Swinburne suggested there are two types of causal explanations. And the principle of sufficient reason talks about there being reasons or causes for things that happen. So scientific explanations are in terms of laws and initial conditions. That's one of the causal explanations. The second type of causal explanation is a personal explanation in terms of agents and their volitions. So if we were to ask the question, why is the kettle boiling? There are two options. There's a scientific explanation that the heat of the flame is being conducted via the copper bottom of the kettle to the water, increasing the kinetic energy of the water molecules such that they vibrate so violently that they break the surface tension of the water and are thrown off in the form of steam. So this scientific explanation talks about how the physical laws operate and what the initial conditions were. The personal explanation is in terms of agents or personalities. The personal explanation is I put on the kettle to make a cup of tea. So you see there are two possible explanations for the same phenomena. One or both of these explanations can be given for any type of effect. You can have the scientific explanation by itself, a personal explanation by itself, or both. But the first cause of the universe cannot have a scientific explanation. And the reason is there was nothing before, the universe creation. So the first cause cannot be accounted for in terms of physical laws operating in initial conditions, because there were no initial conditions and there were no physical laws. Therefore, the only other explanation is that the effect of the first cause, or the first cause, can only be accounted for in terms of an agent and its volitions. This is the process of elimination. So the first cause is a personal explanation, so the first cause is personal. 3.2 is the first cause is a mind. So the first cause has the effect of creating the universe. The first cause causes something to happen. Now, we know that the first cause was timeless and immaterial. We know it was timeless because it existed outside of time, since time did not exist. Remember, time was created with the universe. And the first cause is immaterial since matter did not exist until the universe was created. So the first cause was both timeless and immaterial. By the process of elimination, the only objects that are timeless and immaterial are an abstract object or a mind. But an abstract object cannot cause anything to happen. Abstract objects have no causal relationship to reality. For example, the number 3 cannot cause something to happen, and the color blue cannot cause something to happen. So by the process of elimination, the only remaining possibility is that the first event is a mind. Now, there might be some objection to this, in that people might say, we have no evidence to show, or we have no reasons for believing that a mind can exist without a body. There are some people who might put this forward to say, all of the minds we know of have bodies attached to them. And so what we might need is some supporting factors to show that a mind can exist without a body. So let's just quickly go through this. And this will be part of another video series, Over 50 Reasons Why Christianity Makes Sense. This is a quick example of them. I'm not going to go through these in detail. I'm just going to state them. And when that video series comes out, you can go and visit it and learn about these in more detail. But I'm just going to name these factors which support the existence of a timeless and material things like a mind, right? So to believe that a mind can exist without a body, we need to believe that non-physical things can exist. So the first one is that there are multiple levels of being. There's matter, there's consciousness, there's self-awareness. And all of these, there's another one I can't remember at the moment, but matter is only the first one. There are other levels of being, like consciousness. We know consciousness exists because we can be unconscious. We know self-awareness exists because we cannot necessarily be self-aware. So these are other levels of being. The mind is separate from the body. Do we have evidence for that? I think we can show evidence for that. Does free will exist? If you believe in free will, then you believe in something beyond the physical determinism. There's something we call the argument from truth. Item 5 is near-death or post-death experiences. I think there's been significant evidence here to show that a mind can exist after death. 6 is the existence of non-physical pain. How is it that pain is induced from non-physical mechanisms? There's what we call a common consent argument. So based on these 7 supporting factors, we can believe that things exist that are timeless and immaterial, and a mind can exist independent of a physical body. 3.3 is the first cause willed the creation event. This is really my favorite. Let's start with a quote from William Lane Craig. This is a pretty dense quote. I want to start with it because we're going to unpack it. William Lane Craig says, by the nature of the case, that first cause cannot have any beginning of its existence or any prior cause. Nor can there have been any changes in this cause, either in its nature or operations, prior to the beginning of the universe. It just exists changelessly without beginning, and a finite time ago it brought the universe into existence. Now this is exceedingly odd. The cause is in some sense eternal, and yet the effect which produced it is not eternal, but began to exist a finite time ago. How can this be? If the necessary and sufficient conditions for the production of the effect are eternal, then why isn't the effect eternal? How can all the causal conditions sufficient for the production of the effect be changelessly existent, and yet the effect not also be existent along with the cause? How can the cause exist without the effect? The question is, how can a first event come to exist if the cause of that event exists changelessly and eternally? Why isn't the effect co-eternal with its cause? So that's pretty dense. You might want to read that a couple times just to get a feel for it. But let's unpack it. Let's begin by summarizing what we've found so far. We found the universe had a beginning, and there was a first cause outside of the universe that created that universe. Okay. So the first cause outside of the universe metaphysically grounds the universe, created and sustains it. Now I'm not going to justify that it sustains it, but it seems fairly obvious that the universe is contingent. So the universe depends on something for its existence. So it makes sense that the thing that created the universe also sustains it. So the first cause grounds the universe existing outside time. So we find that the first cause is a necessary entity and not a contingent entity. It's necessary in that it doesn't depend on anything. a necessary entity is beginningless, I have to make a comment here. And that the Kalam is not against there being a beginningless entity. But the evidence is that the universe had a beginning, so it is not the beginningless entity. Indeed, the first cause is the beginningless entity. And what we're trying to do right here is determine, is that first cause personal or impersonal? As William Lane Craig asked, how do you explain the origin of a temporal effect from a timeless cause? Yeah, let's sort of step back. To be personal requires an act of the will. A personality is a willful thing. It has volition. It has willful acts. So what we're going to do here is show that creation of the universe was a willful act. Because the creation was a willful act, the first cause, the creator, was personal. So we need to show that the first creation event was a willful act, that there was a choice made to actually create the universe. Let's talk about the situations where there is no person involved. Non-willful situations. When necessary and sufficient conditions are met, then spontaneous activity occurs. And I'll give you an example of that. But before we look at that example, with personhood, choices can be made and delayed. You know, I'm a big fan of Haagen-Dazs ice cream, and they make these incredible vanilla with chocolate and almond ice cream bars. Well, I could choose to have a popsicle or a Haagen-Dazs ice cream bar. That's a choice. I can choose to have it now or tomorrow. I can delay that choice. So choice is involved with persons. Personality means willful action. So let's talk about non-willful situations. When necessary and sufficient conditions occur, spontaneous action. We'll use magnesium and water. So the necessary and sufficient conditions to burn magnesium would be that we have magnesium, we have water, and the magnesium contacts the water. So the necessary and sufficient condition for magnesium to burn is that it comes into contact with water. The presence of necessary and sufficient reactions cause an immediate activity. Notice that magnesium cannot choose to burn or not burn. It's an immediate reaction. It cannot will itself to not burn. Magnesium has no self-control. It can't delay the reaction. Magnesium has no will. It is not a person. So, when there are necessary and sufficient conditions, then an immediate reaction occurs. Let's apply that to the first cause. So this first cause existed in a timeless and changeless state with no beginning. It was changeless because there was nothing to change it, no space, no matter, and energy, because they weren't created yet. It was timeless because time did not exist. Time was created by this first cause, so the first cause is beginningless. It existed for eternity outside of the universe of time. So the first cause existed from eternity past. So we have this timeline for the first cause. This is used for illustrative purposes. We have the universe timeline as well. So the first cause existed from eternity past. The first cause is a sufficient and necessary condition to create the universe. It's sufficient because there's nothing else beside it. It's necessary because it's needed to create the universe. So if the first cause is a sufficient and necessary condition to create the universe, creation should have occurred an eternity ago. Remember, it's beginningless. So the necessary and sufficient conditions always existed, therefore the universe should have always existed. Notice how the universe time would overlap with the first cause's eternity, and that time would have begun an eternity ago, meaning it would have had no beginning. So time should have started an eternity ago, which would have meant that there would have been an actually infinite number of seconds that elapsed, but it's impossible to cross an actual infinite, so this situation could not have occurred. Let's look at an alternative situation. Again, the first cause existed from eternity past. The first cause is a sufficient and necessary condition to create the universe. But in this case, creation was delayed, so there is no actual infinite. There is no actually infinite past number of seconds. Notice how the universe time overlaps with the first cause. It has a beginning. So the first cause willed to delay the creation event. That's how we know the first cause is personal. It willed to delay the creation event. Let's try to prove this, and this is my attempt to form this proof. It may not be as strong as it needs to be, but I'm sure someone will strengthen it. So the first cause existed outside of time. It existed for eternity in a timeless, beginningless state. The first cause was a necessary and sufficient condition to create the universe. If the first cause had no will, then creation would have occurred an eternity ago, because creation would have happened spontaneously. But the universe was not created an eternity ago. That has not been an actually infinite number of seconds in the past. So the first cause willed the creation event to be delayed. So the first cause is personal because it has a will. And that concludes the proof. Now, there are some people who might say, well, there's a loose end. What if there was a cause of the first cause? And what if there was a cause of the cause of the first cause? What if there was a cause of the 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 cause, of the first cause? What if there was an infinite number of first causes? Well, this is loose end is to show that there was a first cause, even if there was a chain of causes to create the universe. So this is the impossibility of an infinite regress. And you cannot cross an actual infinite. I'm not going to actually formulate this as an argument. We're just going to talk about it. So either the first cause existed from all eternity or it did not. If it did not, then there was another cause, let's call it E-1 to create it. Then there was another cause E-2 to create that cause. This regression cannot be an actually infinite because we should not get to now if it were. So even if there were a chain of first causes, that chain cannot be an actual infinite because you cannot cross an actually infinite set of events. So if there is a regression of causes, there must be an ultimate first cause, so there was a first cause. 3.4 is another explanation, which is the design of nature to support advanced life. This is from an engineering perspective, this is appealing. But instead of looking at the first cause, the idea here is to look around at the universe to see if there's justification to conclude the first cause is not personal or the first cause is personal. And in this case, we're going to leverage another argument for the existence of God, which is the teleological or design argument. What we're going to do here is just a very brief summary of that design argument. Here's the design argument formulated as a sequence of propositions. The fine-tuning of the universe to support an advanced civilization is due either to necessity, chance, or design. Necessity, we'll call it physical law. And necessity meaning it was impossible for it to not occur. It was destined to occur. The second proposition is not due to physical law. The fine-tuning is not due to physical law. Third proposition is the fine-tuning is not due to chance. The only remaining conclusion by process of elimination is that it is due to design. Design requires personal intelligence and intent, willful actions. So the universe was created by a personal agent. We're just going to look at one of these examples. We can automatically strike off number 2, it's not due to physical law, because there was nothing physical about the universe. Remember, again, the universe did not exist. The first cause is outside the universe. So physical laws could not have created our universe, could not have been part of the equation. So we talked about entropy when we talked about the first premise, the universe had a beginning. And we're going to talk about that a little more. And Roger Penrose came up with a value for the amount of entropy in the system. And when we say entropy, it doesn't mean the final state. We're talking about the initial state. The initial state of entropy and how fine-tuned it was. What he did was he looked at black holes and figured out, came up with an equation for the density of the black holes in the galaxy, estimated the number of black holes, and then worked backwards to calculate how much entropy there was. Remember, entropy is the ability to do work, and how fine-tuned that was. And he came up with a number that the fine-tuning of the entropy is 1 part in 10 to the 10th power to the 123rd power. So the fine-tuning of the entropy per baryon, I think a baryon is a proton or neutron, is 10 times 10 to the 123rd. And he says in The Road to Reality, which is talking about this, is on the other hand, it might well be that the universe is spatially infinite, like the standard cosmological model with k equal to 0, k less than 0. This does not invalidate the foregoing argument. Taking the presently observable universe to contain 10 to the 80 baryons, it's hard to see that the above considerations will be seriously affected. On the other hand, if we apply the arguments to the universe as a whole, still taking the standard cosmological model as a good approximation, we simply get a requirement of, listen to this, infinite precision on the part of the creator rather than merely absurdly large precision. I do not see how this in any way resolves a conundrum presented by the extraordinarily precise tuning that was inherent in the Big Bang, an essential correlate of the second law. So let's sort of paraphrase. To Roger Penrose, there's an infinite amount of fine-tuning related to the entropy in the initial conditions of the universe. So the fine-tuning of the entropy per baryon is 10 times 10 to the 123rd. So if you talk about a probability, it's it's 1 part in 10, and that is the number of zeros after the decimal place. There are only 10 to the 80 particles in the visible universe. So if you try and compare quantities in the universe to the entropy, state of entropy, you see that the state of entropy is so much fine-tuned that you can't even fathom it. It's a probability of 0. And that's what Roger Penrose was hinting at. This fine-tuning of entropy is so impossible that the probability of occurring is 0. Therefore, chance is eliminated as a design alternative. And that leaves, of course, the designer. So, in summary to the first cause was personal, we have 4 reasons. The reasons for believing the cause of the beginning event is personal are 3.1, the cause is not scientific, so it's personal. 3.2, the beginning event's cause is a mind. 3.3, the first cause willed to initiate the creation event. And 3.4, the design of nature to support advanced life. So there's 4 reasons. Only one of those has to be more plausible than its opposite for justification believing that the first cause is personal. So, following our tree, We find that the universe had a beginning. The beginning event was cause. The cause of the beginning event was personal.